Russell, you work too much.
Gotta bring home the bacon to fatten you up.
You want another?
No, Rodney was supposed to meet me here a half hour ago.
Hello, welcome to our Recap Plus channel with me, Matthew. Today we will watch a recap movie called Out of the Furnace, released in 2013. This is a spoiler content video. So please turn on the subtitle and let's start the story. The movie opens with Harlan DeGroat in his car in a park, engrossed in a movie. Accompanied by his girlfriend, who playfully teases him, Harlan loses his temper and violently slams her face against the car dashboard. A bystander intervenes upon hearing the woman's distress, leading to a scuffle in which Harlan violently beats the intervening man. Meanwhile, Russell Baze works in a Pennsylvania steel mill. On his way home from work, he notices his younger brother Rodney's car parked outside the racetrack. Approaching Rodney, who recently lost a bet on horse racing, Russell questions him about the source of the money used for the bet. Despite expressing disapproval, Russell refrains from harshly scolding his brother excessively. The next day, Russell visits his ailing father, cared for by his uncle, Red Baze. Russell discovers that Rodney, a military man about to be sent to Iraq, is also present. Following the visit, Russell confronts John, the moneylender who lent Rodney money. As Russell is about to enter John's room, he unexpectedly encounters Harlan, who is with John as a threatening guest. Harlan becomes angered when Russell enters without permission. Russell hands over his monthly salary to John to settle his brother's debt and promises to pay the rest from his next paycheck. He also pleads with John not to inform Rodney about the debt. Afterward, Russell has a drink at John's bar before heading home. That evening, Russell returns home inebriated, finding the streets seemingly desolate. Suddenly, a car descends from above and stops crosswise. Despite attempting to brake, it is too late, resulting in a tragic accident. Unfortunately, the occupants of the struck car, a woman and her child, are both found dead. Russell is subsequently imprisoned for 8 years due to this incident. Throughout his imprisonment, Lena Taylor, Russell's girlfriend, never visits him, while Rodney consistently does. Rodney informs Russell that he is leaving for Iraq soon and may not see him for an extended period. Several months later, Rodney returns after completing his military service. He reveals that their long-sick father has recently passed away, leaving Russell shocked. A few years later, Russell is finally released from prison. Rodney picks him up on the day of his release, and the first place Russell visits is the graves of his father and mother. He then plans to visit his ex, Lena, discovering that she already has a boyfriend, Wesley Barnes, a police chief. After a while, Russell regains his old job at a Pennsylvania steel mill, and Rodney participates in an illegal fight. Rodney's opponent proves to be formidable, hitting him several times until he falls to the ground. However, the tide turns when the opponent insults Rodney's mother. Rodney loses control, severely beating his opponent and winning the fight. It becomes apparent that Rodney participated in the illegal fight to settle accumulated debts owed to John. John, angered by Rodney's unexpected victory, expresses his dissatisfaction, as he had bet on Rodney losing. In a later conversation, John informs Rodney that he is unfit to fight due to his inability to manage his emotions. John advises Rodney to follow his brother's lead and pursue a career in the metal industry. Nevertheless, despite his battered face, Rodney brushes off John's counsel. Meanwhile, Russell, who had stayed home awaiting Rodney, is taken aback by his brother's condition. However, Russell refrains from bombarding him with questions. Rodney heads straight to his room, hesitant to speak. The next day, while tidying up after breakfast, Russell finds discarded bandages in the trash. Approaching Rodney immediately, he urges him to cease his involvement in illegal fights and extends an invitation to join him in a metal foundry. The income may not match that of a fighter, but at least it could provide a means of survival. Rodney, incensed, declares he has lost interest in life. Displaying scars from his time in Iraq, he shares that serving his country only ended in sorrow, witnessing the death of numerous war victims. Nevertheless, the sacrifice has not translated into a dignified life. Rodney visits John at the tavern, pleading to join the effort to settle his debts. Initially cautious due to the high stakes and the shady organizers of the fights, John eventually agrees at Rodney's insistence. Later, John contacts Harlan, the fight organizer, requesting Rodney's inclusion in the upcoming illegal match. Russell is seen meeting Lena at another location, where he implores her to rekindle their relationship. However, Lena, now pregnant and involved with Wesley, rejects him. Eventually, The two embrace, shedding tears. Russell later visits the accident site where the collision occurred with the car carrying the woman and child, laying a wreath to express condolences. The next day, he visits his uncle, who invites him to go hunting in the forest. Despite his weariness, Russell accepts the invitation. Meanwhile, Rodney, accompanied by John, heads to meet Harlan. Harlan, underestimating Rodney's fighting prowess due to his height and appearance, provokes Rodney, leading to a challenge to showcase his skills. Fortunately, John manages to defuse the situation. Later, John summons Rodney, urging him to surrender in the upcoming fight, in line with the agreement with Harlan. Rodney, still harboring anger toward Harlan, remains silent, undecided on whether to surrender. On the day of the fight, Rodney adopts an aggressive stance. His intense anger enables him to effectively attack and overpower his opponent. When John notices this, he insists that Rodney must lose, but Rodney finally complies, refusing to fight back when attacked. Despite Rodney's clear victory, his opponent continues the assault, prompting John to intervene and save Rodney. After the fight, Harlan informs John that his business is finished since Harlan won the bet money on Rodney's fight. Finally, the two return home, and John is relieved to be done with Harlan. Unfortunately, his prediction proves inaccurate as the car is intercepted by Harlan and his men. Harlan approaches the halted car near the end of the bridge. When John notices Harlan, his cell phone accidentally falls under the car seat, connecting the number to the answering machine. Through the car window, Harlan approaches John, declaring that he is not finished, and proceeds to shoot him. Harlan instructs his men to take Rodney to a warehouse. Russell, returning from hunting, enters Rodney's room that night and discovers a letter. In the letter, Rodney apologizes to Russell for not heeding his advice to change jobs. He acknowledges that this would be his final fight and promises to work in the metal industry after this meeting. Meanwhile, Harlan's men are torturing Rodney. When Harlan enters the barn, he asks Rodney to look at his face. However, Rodney insults him by calling him a coward. Harlan, inevitably enraged, immediately shoots him and orders his men to bury Rodney's body in the middle of the forest. Wesley visits Russell the following day. Initially thinking Wesley has come due to his previous relationship with Lena, Russell's prediction is proven wrong. Wesley is there to inform him of Rodney's death. Later, at the police station, Russell is presented with a voice recording made before John's death. The recording unintentionally captured the moments leading to John's death in his bartender's voicemail. Despite difficulties in locating Rodney, the police have investigated the people at the accident scene, all of whom have remained silent. Russell becomes enraged upon learning of this, accusing Wesley and the police of incompetence in handling Rodney's disappearance. Russell and his uncle return to John's office to request Harlan's address. Russell meets a bartender in John's office who claims not to know Harlan's address but is aware of the fight locations. During his investigation, Russell discovers that John owes Harlan a considerable amount of money, which will be settled through a fight. He and his uncle rush to the address provided by the bartender. Later that evening, Russell goes to a parking lot and pretends to buy items from Harlan's men. Initially, they hesitate to serve Russell, suspecting him to be an undercover cop, but eventually, they take him to Harlan's headquarters. Russell struggles to locate Harlan amid the crowd. A local policeman halts Russell and his uncle while driving. Wesley directs the policeman to expedite Harlan's departure, emphasizing the locals' tendency to take justice into their own hands and their hostility towards outsiders. The policeman instructs Russell to drive away, warning of arrest if he disobeys. Forced to comply, Russell and his uncle are compelled to return home. A few days later, Wesley awaits Russell at the factory exit after work. Claiming that authorities have found Rodney's body buried in the bushes, Wesley delivers the devastating news. Russell, attempting to stay composed, is inwardly devastated. That evening, Wesley and Lena visit Russell's home to express their condolences. Lena urges Russell not to investigate Rodney's death alone and to turn the case over to the police. Russell attempts to live a normal life for several months. Despite learning about authorities raiding Harlan's house, his position remains unclear. After months of waiting, he decides to take matters into his own hands. Breaking into John's office, he seeks more information about Harlan. Russell finds Harlan's phone number and immediately calls him. Summoning Harlan to the bar, Russell promises to pay John's remaining debts. Harlan arrives at the pub that evening, escorted by one of his men. Entering from the back street with a heavy bag, Harlan threatens and interrogates the bartender, demanding information about the person who contacted him. Russell, who had been lurking, approaches the pub's entrance with a gun. In another room, he eliminates Harlan's henchman and prepares to confront him. When Harlan starts shooting, Russell seeks cover. Unfortunately, the car fails to start when Harlan attempts to escape due to sabotage. Forced to flee the car, Harlan takes refuge in an abandoned factory. Russell pursues him, and the two collide. Russell shoots Harlan in the leg, but he manages to stand. He then orders Harlan to accompany him on a walk in the woods. From a distance, Wesley begs Russell not to kill Harlan. Ignoring the warning, Russell notices Harlan walking away and shoots him in the back, resulting in his death. Next, Russell is still in his house. He is not imprisoned because Wesley defended him and arranged for his acquittal. To watch more video like this, click on the videos on your screen, and don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. And at last I will say, stay safe and stay healthy. See you next videos.